Tired of counting sheep? Let Geralt of Rivia whisk you away on a soothing journey through the world of The Witcher 3. Close your eyes and let the immersive narration of this epic story lull you into a peaceful slumber. Discover the power of storytelling for a good night's sleep. Experience the entire saga of The Witcher 3 through a captivating narrative that will lull you into a peaceful slumber, allowing you to drift off into a world of fantasy and adventure. Close your eyes and let your mind drift to a world where magic flows like gentle streams through ancient forests, where legends walk among mortals, and where the line between dreams and reality blurs like morning mist over a tranquil lake. This is the world of The Witcher, a realm both beautiful and mysterious, where every shadow holds a story and every breeze carries whispers of adventures untold. In this enchanted land, the northern kingdoms stretch across vast continents, their borders marked not by harsh lines but by the natural flow of rivers, the gentle rise of hills and the soft embrace of forests. Here, humans have learned to coexist with elves whose ears catch melodies the wind carries from distant realms, with dwarves whose hammers ring like gentle bells in mountain halls, and with halflings whose laughter bubbles like spring water over smooth stone. The world breathes with an ancient rhythm, where magic is as natural as the morning dew and as essential as the air itself. Sorceresses weave spells that shimmer like starlight, their incantations flowing like poetry through the night air. Bards strum their lutes by flickering candlelight, their songs carrying tales of heroes and heartbreak across cobblestone streets and moonlit meadows. And in the deepest forests, where ancient trees whisper secrets to those who know how to listen, creatures of legend still roam free. But this is not a world of simple fairy tales. It is a realm where beauty and darkness dance together like partners in an eternal waltz, where the most stunning sunset might herald the arrival of creatures that hunt in the shadows, and where the gentlest brook might hide depths that harbor ancient magic. It is a world that requires protectors, guardians who stand between the innocent and the unknown. These guardians are known as Witchers, beings who have sacrificed their humanity to become something more, something capable of facing the monsters that lurk in the spaces between dream and nightmare. They are warriors, alchemists, and reluctant heroes all at once, their enhanced senses allowing them to perceive dangers that others cannot see, their trained reflexes enabling them to react to threats that move faster than human eyes can follow. Among these Witchers, there is one whose story has become legend, whose deeds are whispered in taverns and sung in royal courts alike. His name is Geralt of Rivia, though those who know him best understand that, like many things in his world, even his name carries layers of meaning and mystery. Some call him the White Wolf, for his distinctive white hair that flows like moonlight and his amber eyes that seem to hold the wisdom of centuries. Others know him simply as the Butcher of Blaviken, a title that carries with it the weight of choices made in moments when right and wrong blur together like watercolors in the rain. Geralt's story is one of constant wandering, of roads that stretch endlessly toward horizons that promise both adventure and sorrow. He travels not by choice but by necessity, for a Witcher's life is one of perpetual motion, always moving toward the next contract, the next monster, the next village in need of protection. His horse, Roach, has been his most constant companion, her steady hooves carrying him across kingdoms and through seasons, her presence a comforting reminder that even in a world of magic and monsters, some things remain beautifully, simply real. But Geralt's journey is not one he takes alone. Woven into the tapestry of his existence are threads of connection that bind him to others whose fates seem as intertwined with his own as ivy with an ancient oak. There is Yennefer of Vengerberg, a sorceress whose beauty is matched only by her formidable power, whose violet eyes hold depths that reflect both tenderness and fierce determination. Their relationship is one of passion and conflict, of magnetic attraction and inevitable separation, like two celestial bodies locked in an eternal orbit around each other. Their love story unfolds across years and continents, marked by moments of perfect understanding and periods of painful distance. When they are together, the very air seems to crackle with energy, their conversations flowing like dueling melodies that sometimes harmonize and sometimes clash, creating music that is both beautiful and unsettling. When they are apart, the silence between them echoes with unspoken words and unfulfilled promises, like the space between notes in a haunting lullaby. And then there is Ciri, a young woman whose importance to both Geralt and the world itself becomes clear only gradually, like a photograph developing in the gentle light of dawn. Ciri is what the people of this world call a child of surprise, bound to Geralt by the ancient law of surprise, a mystical connection that transcends mere obligation and becomes something deeper, something that resembles the bond between father and daughter. Her story is one of awakening power, of discovering that she carries within herself abilities that could reshape the very fabric of reality. Ciri's journey from a lost princess to a young woman of incredible power is marked by trials that would break lesser spirit, by moments of triumph that shine like stars in a dark sky, and by the gradual understanding that her destiny is tied not just to Geralt and those she loves, but to the fate of entire world. For Ciri possesses what the learned call the Elder Blood, a genetic legacy that grants her the ability to travel between dimensions, to step through the barriers that separate one reality from another, as easily as walking through a door. The world these three inhabit is one of constant change, where political intrigue weaves through royal courts like smoke through a forest, where armies march across landscapes that seem to shift and breathe with their own life, and where the very boundaries between nations are as fluid as the relationships between the people who inhabit them. The Nilfgaardian Empire, vast and ambitious, stretches its influence northward like a shadow growing longer as the sun sets, its black armored soldiers moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine, their conquest as inevitable as the changing of season. Yet within this grand tapestry of politics and power, smaller stories unfold like wildflowers in a meadow, each one beautiful and meaningful in its own right. In every village, every tavern, every crossroads where travelers pause to rest and share their tales, there are people whose lives intersect with Geralt's journey in ways both profound and subtle. There are merchants whose goods carry the scent of distant lands, farmers whose fields stretch toward horizons that promise both abundance and uncertainty, and innkeepers whose hearths provide warmth and comfort to those who wander far from home. The monsters that Geralt faces are not merely obstacles to be overcome, but creatures with their own stories, their own reasons for existing in a world that often fears and misunderstands them. Some are born of ancient curses, their forms twisted by magic that has festered like untreated wounds over generations. Others are refugees from realms beyond, creatures that have found themselves stranded in a world that is not their own, struggling to survive in an environment that is as alien to them as their presence is unsettling to those they encounter. In this world, every choice carries weight. Every decision ripples outward like stones thrown into still water, creating patterns that affect not just the immediate moment but the distant future as well. Geralt's story is one of such choices, of moments when he must decide between competing loyalties, between the letter of the law and the spirit of justice, between his own desires and the needs of those who depend on him. The magic that permeates this world is not the flashy spectacle of stage conjurers but something deeper, more fundamental, like the magic of sunrise painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, or the magic of a mother's lullaby soothing a frightened child. It flows through the very ground beneath their feet, rises with the morning mist, and dances in the flames of campfires that provide light and warmth to travelers sharing stories under star-filled skies. This is the world of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, a place where every path leads to new discoveries, where every sunset promises adventures yet to come, and where the journey itself becomes as important as any destination. It is a world that invites us to lose ourselves in its beauty, to let our minds wander through its forests and along its rivers, to drift peacefully into sleep while imagining ourselves as part of its timeless story. As we prepare to follow Geralt on his greatest adventure, let the gentle rhythm of his horse's hooves on cobblestone streets lull us into a state of peaceful anticipation. Let the whisper of wind through ancient trees carry away the concerns of our day, and let the promise of stories yet to be told guide us gently toward rest and dreams of a world where magic is real and heroes still walk among. The morning sun rises slowly over the landscape of Velen, its golden light filtering through the canopy of trees that stretch endlessly toward the horizon like a green ocean frozen in time. In this gentle illumination we find Geralt of Rivia, the White Wolf, astride his faithful mare Roach, as they make their way along paths that seem to wind through the very heart of the world itself. His silver hair catches the light like spun moonbeams, and his amber eyes reflect the wisdom of countless journeys, countless encounters with both the mundane and the miraculous. Geralt's story begins not with his birth but with his transformation. For a witcher is not born but made, shaped by ancient rituals and harsh training that strip away the vulnerabilities of ordinary humanity, while preserving the core of what makes one human. The School of the Wolf, where Geralt learned his craft, sits like a stone guardian in the mountains of Kaer Morhen, its walls weathered by centuries of storms, its halls echoing with the memories of generations of witchers who have walked these same paths. The process of becoming a witcher is one of trials and tribulations that would break most men, yet those who survive emerge as something more than human, their senses enhanced to perceive the subtle signs of magical activity, their reflexes honed to respond to threats that move faster than normal eyes can follow. They develop an immunity to most diseases and poisons, their bodies becoming living weapons capable of channeling the energy of the signs they cast. Magical abilities that manifest as bursts of flame, protective shields, or mental influence over their enemy. But perhaps the most significant change is not physical but emotional. For the mutations that create a witcher are said to strip away the ability to feel emotions as deeply as ordinary humans do. Yet in Geralt's case, this supposed limitation becomes a source of strength rather than weakness. For his controlled emotional responses allow him to make decisions based on logic and necessity, rather than being swayed by the heat of passion or the paralysis of fear. As we follow Geralt through the early stages of his greatest adventure, we see him as a man shaped by decades of wandering, of contracts accepted and completed, of monsters slain and innocence protected. His reputation precedes him like ripples on a pond, spreading outward from every village where he has worked, every tavern where he has shared a meal and a story, every crossroads where travelers have glimpsed the distinctive figure of the White Wolf and lived to tell the tale. The relationship between Geralt and Yennefer of Vengerberg unfolds like a complex musical composition, with themes that repeat and vary, harmonies that sometimes resolve into perfect consonance and sometimes create tensions that pull at the heart. Their first meeting, years before the events of our story, was marked by a magical binding that neither fully understood at the time, a wish made in a moment of desperation that tied their fates together with threads stronger than steel, yet more delicate than spider silk. Yennefer herself is a figure of contradictions, a sorceress whose power rivals that of the greatest mages of her age, yet whose heart yearns for the simple human connections that her magical abilities often complicate. Her transformation from a hunchbacked girl into a woman of devastating beauty came at a price that she continues to pay, for magic always demands sacrifice, and the greater the transformation, the greater the cost. Her relationship with Geralt is one of equals, two beings who have both sacrificed their humanity for power and purpose, yet who find in each other a recognition of shared experience and mutual understanding. Their conversations flow like a dance, sometimes playful, sometimes serious, always charged with an undercurrent of attraction that neither can fully ignore nor completely embrace. The search for Ciri becomes the driving force of Geralt's journey, a quest that takes him across the length and breadth of the known world and beyond. Ciri, whose full name is Cyrilla Fiona Ellen Rhiannon, carries within her bloodline the legacy of the Elder Blood, a genetic inheritance that grants her abilities that most people can barely comprehend. She is a child of destiny, marked by prophecy and pursued by forces that see in her either salvation or destruction. Geralt's connection to Ciri runs deeper than mere obligation, deeper even than the law of surprise that first bound them together. Over the years, as he trained her in the ways of combat and survival, as he watched her grow from a frightened child into a determined young woman, their relationship evolved into something that transcends the usual bonds between teacher and student, becoming instead the deep, unconditional love between a father and daughter. The Wild Hunt, from which this chapter of Geralt's story takes its name, represents a threat unlike any other he has faced. These spectral riders, led by Eredin Braak Glas, the king of the Wild Hunt, are not mere monsters to be slain with silver sword and careful preparation. They are beings from another sphere of existence, their motivations and methods as alien to the inhabitants of Geralt's world as the depths of the ocean are to creatures of the sky. The hunt's pursuit of Ciri is relentless and inexorable, like a tide that cannot be turned or a storm that cannot be weathered. They seek her not out of malice, but out of necessity, for they believe that her power represents their only hope of survival in a multiverse where their own world is dying. Yet their methods are brutal and their understanding of morality is so different from that of humans, that they might as well be forces of nature, as impersonal as earthquakes or floods. As Geralt begins his search for Ciri, he must navigate not only the physical dangers of a world at war, but also the complex web of relationships and obligations that have accumulated over his long life. Every person he has helped, every contract he has completed, every enemy he has made becomes a potential ally or obstacle in his quest. The network of connections that spreads out from his passage through the world reveals itself to be both a resource and a burden, for a Witcher's past is never truly past, and every choice he has made continues to influence his present circumstance. The political situation in the Northern Kingdoms adds another layer of complexity to Geralt's journey. The Nilfgaardian Empire, under the rule of Emperor Emhyr var Emreis, continues its northward expansion, its armies moving with the patience and precision of a master chess player advancing his piece. The war that rages across the continent is not merely a conflict between nations, but a struggle between different visions of civilization, different ideas about how power should be exercised and how societies should be organized. Yet Geralt's concern is not with the grand sweep of history, but with the immediate and personal. His loyalty is not to any kingdom or empire, but to the individuals he has come to care about, to the promises he has made and the obligations he has accepted. In a world where political alliances shift like sand dunes in the wind, his personal code of honor becomes the one constant that guides his actions. The monsters that Geralt encounters on his journey are as varied as the landscapes he traverses. In the swamps of Velen, he faces creatures born of ancient curses and forgotten magic, their forms twisted by centuries of hatred and regret. In the forests of Skellige, he confronts beings that have wandered from the realm of Faerie, their alien beauty hiding dangers that no mortal weapon can fully address. In the cities and towns where civilization has taken root, he deals with the most dangerous monsters of all, humans whose greed and cruelty have transformed them into something worse than any beast. Each encounter with the supernatural forces Geralt to draw not only upon his physical skills, but upon his understanding of the world's hidden layers, the connections between the mundane and the magical, that most people never see. His preparation for each hunt becomes a meditation on the nature of the creature he faces, a process of research and contemplation that reveals as much about himself as about his quarry. The relationship between predator and prey in Geralt's world is never simple, never black and white. The monsters he hunts are often themselves victims of circumstances beyond their control, creatures driven by hungers they cannot satisfy or compulsions they cannot resist. His approach to dealing with them reflects his understanding that true monsters are not defined by their appearance or their nature, but by their choices and their willingness to cause unnecessary suffering. As we follow Geralt deeper into his quest, we begin to see how his past experiences have shaped him, how every contract he has accepted, every person he has saved or failed to save, every moment of triumph or regret, has contributed to the man he has become. His memories flow like a river through his consciousness, sometimes rushing with the urgency of immediate relevance, sometimes meandering like a lazy stream through countryside that is peaceful and familiar. The training he received at Kaer Morhen under the tutelage of Vesemir, the oldest and most experienced of the Witchers, echoes through every movement he makes, every decision he reaches. The lessons were harsh but necessary, teaching not just the techniques of combat but the philosophy of the Witcher's path: to remain neutral in the conflicts of others, to accept payment for services rendered, to never take a contract that requires him to choose sides in a political dispute. Yet, as Geralt's story unfolds, we see how these principles are tested by the realities of a world where neutrality is often impossible, where the right choice is not always clear, and where the consequences of inaction can be as devastating as the consequences of action. His humanity, supposedly diminished by the mutations that made him a Witcher, reveals itself in the compassion he shows for those who cannot protect themselves, in the lengths he will go to keep his promises, and in the pain he feels when he is forced to choose between competing loyalty. The road ahead stretches before Geralt like a ribbon of possibility, winding through landscapes that shift from the familiar to the fantastic, from the mundane to the magical. Each step forward is a step deeper into a story that has no clear ending, no simple resolution, only the ongoing journey of a man who has chosen to stand between the innocent and the forces that would destroy them. As the sun sets over the forests of Velen, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that fade gently into the soft darkness of evening, Geralt makes camp beside a small stream, whose water bubbles and murmurs with the voice of the earth itself. The fire he builds casts dancing shadows on the surrounding trees, and in its warm light he tends to his equipment with the practiced efficiency of a man who has performed these rituals countless times before. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new choices, new opportunities to prove that even in a world where monsters prowl in the darkness, there are still those willing to stand guard over the light. But for now, in this moment of quiet reflection, we can rest beside his fire and let the gentle sounds of the wilderness lull us into peaceful contemplation of the adventures that await us on the path ahead. The story of Geralt of Rivia is far from over, and as we prepare to continue our journey with him, we can take comfort in the knowledge that we are in the company of a true hero, a man who has faced the darkness and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken, not unchanged but not defeated. His path leads ever onward, and we are privileged to walk it with him, to share in his trials and triumphs, and to discover along the way that the greatest adventures are not found in the destinations we reach, but in the journeys we take to reach them. In the gentle twilight of our story, as the last rays of sunlight filter through the ancient oaks of Velen, we come to understand that the world of The Witcher is not merely a stage upon which predetermined events unfold, but rather a living tapestry woven from the countless choices made by every individual who walks its paths. Each decision, from the grandest proclamation of kings to the smallest kindness shown by a village baker, sends ripples through the fabric of reality, creating patterns that shape the future in ways both subtle and profound. Geralt of Rivia, for all his supernatural abilities and legendary reputation, remains fundamentally human in his capacity to choose. Unlike the monsters he hunts, which are driven by instinct and compulsion, or the political figures who often find themselves trapped by the expectations of their positions, Geralt possesses the freedom to decide his own path. This freedom, however, comes with a weight that would crush lesser men. For in a world where every choice matters, the responsibility of choosing correctly becomes almost unbearable. The first great choice that shapes our narrative occurs in the quiet moments before dawn, when Geralt stands at the edge of a crossroads, not merely a physical intersection of paths, but a metaphorical junction, where multiple futures converge. The information he has gathered about Ciri's whereabouts points in different directions, each path offering its own promises and perils. To the north lies the war-torn region of Oxenfurt, where political intrigue swirls like morning mist and every conversation might be a trap. To the east, the mysterious Skellige Isles beckon with their promise of ancient wisdom and dangerous secrets. To the south, the familiar territories of Temeria offer the comfort of known dangers and established contact. The choice he makes in this moment will determine not only his own immediate future, but the fates of countless others whose lives intersect with his journey. If he chooses to investigate the political connections in Oxenfurt, he might uncover a conspiracy that threatens the stability of the entire region, but he might also waste precious time while Ciri remains in danger. If he sails to Skellige, he might find allies among the island clans, but he might also walk into a trap set by those who wish to use him for their own purposes. If he returns to familiar ground in Temeria, he might miss crucial opportunities that exist only in the present moment. The beauty of Geralt's approach to such decisions lies not in the certainty of his choices, but in the thoughtfulness with which he makes them. He does not rush toward the first available option, or allow himself to be paralyzed by the magnitude of possible consequences. Instead, he gathers information with the patience of a scholar, considers the implications with the wisdom of experience, and then acts with the decisiveness of a warrior who understands that inaction is itself a form of action. As we follow Geralt through the consequences of his choices, we see how the world responds to his decisions, like a living organism, adapting to external stimuli. The people he helps remember his kindness and become allies in unexpected moments. The enemies he makes nurse their grudges and plot their revenge. The neutral parties he encounters form opinions about his character based on his actions, and these opinions influence how they interact with him in future encounters. In the plague-stricken village of Downwarren, Geralt faces a choice that perfectly illustrates the moral complexity of his world. The villagers beg him to help them deal with a malevolent spirit that has been terrorizing their community, killing their livestock and poisoning their wells. The obvious solution would be to destroy the spirit and collect his fee. But as Geralt investigates, he discovers that the spirit was once a woman wrongly accused of witchcraft and burned alive by the ancestors of the very people who now seek his help. The spirit's anger is understandable, her desire for revenge justified by the terrible injustice she suffered. Yet her methods of seeking that revenge harm innocent people who had nothing to do with the crimes committed against her. Geralt must choose between justice and mercy, between the demands of the past and the needs of the present. Whatever choice he makes will have lasting consequences, not just for the village and the spirit, but for his own understanding of what it means to be a protector of the innocent. If he chooses to help the villagers by banishing the spirit, he becomes complicit in covering up a historical injustice, but he saves the lives of people who have done nothing wrong. If he chooses to let the spirit have her revenge, he honors the memory of a woman who was wrongly killed, but he condemns innocent people to suffer for the sins of their ancestors. If he seeks a middle path, trying to find a solution that addresses both the spirit's need for justice and the villagers' need for safety, he might succeed in creating a compromise that satisfies no one and helps everyone. Or he might fail entirely and make the situation worse for all involved. The choice Geralt makes in this situation reverberates through the rest of his journey, influencing how other spirits and supernatural beings react to him, affecting his reputation among the common people, and shaping his own evolving understanding of justice and mercy. The game remembers his choice and incorporates it into the fabric of future events, demonstrating how past decisions continue to influence present circumstances in ways both obvious and subtle. Similarly, Geralt's relationship with the various political factions he encounters is shaped by the choices he makes in seemingly minor interaction. When he helps a Nilfgaardian patrol recover stolen supplies, his assistance is noted by the Empire's intelligence network, and influences how Nilfgaardian officials treat him in later encounters. When he aids Temerian partisans in their resistance activities, his actions are remembered by both sides in the conflict, affecting his reputation among those who support the old order and those who embrace the new. The complexity of these political relationships is further complicated by the fact that Geralt's primary concern is not with the success or failure of any particular faction, but with the safety and well-being of the individuals caught in the crossfire of larger conflict. His choices often reflect a humanistic approach that transcends political boundaries, focusing on immediate human needs rather than abstract ideological principle. In the city of Novigrad, Geralt encounters a situation that perfectly illustrates this tension between personal ethics and political reality. The city is in the grip of a witch hunt led by the fanatical Eternal Fire sect, whose members are systematically persecuting anyone suspected of practicing magic or harboring supernatural ability. The hunters are officially sanctioned by the city government and enjoy popular support among citizens who have been taught to fear magic as a source of corruption and chaos. Yet Geralt knows that many of those being persecuted are innocent of any wrongdoing, their only crime being their ability to sense the magical currents that flow through the world, or their willingness to provide traditional healing services to those who cannot afford the expensive treatments offered by licensed physicians. The choice he faces is whether to involve himself in the persecution of the innocent or to risk his own safety and his mission to find Ciri by opposing the witch hunters. The decisions he makes in these situations are influenced not only by his own moral compass but by his understanding of the larger consequences of his actions. If he opposes the witch hunters too openly, he might find himself branded as a criminal and lose access to the resources and contacts he needs to continue his search for Ciri. If he remains passive in the face of injustice, he might preserve his freedom of action but at the cost of his own self-respect and the respect of those who look to him for protection. The choices available to Geralt are never simple, never reducible to clear-cut decisions between good and evil. Instead, they reflect the moral ambiguity of a world where competing values and interests create situations where any choice involves some form of compromise or sacrifice. His decisions are guided by his understanding that perfection is impossible, but that this impossibility does not excuse inaction or moral cowardice. One of the most powerful examples of this moral complexity occurs in Geralt's relationship with the Bloody Baron, a character whose very name suggests villainy but whose story reveals layers of complexity that challenge simple moral judgments. The Baron is a man who has committed terrible acts, who has hurt those he claims to love, who has made choices that have led to suffering and pain. Yet he is also a man capable of growth and change, someone who recognizes his mistakes and seeks to make amends for them. Geralt's interactions with the Baron force him to confront questions about redemption and forgiveness, about whether people can truly change and whether past actions should define a person's worth forever. The Baron's wife and daughter have disappeared, possibly because of his abusive behavior, possibly because of supernatural forces, possibly because of a combination of both. The Baron asks for Geralt's help in finding them, offering information about Ciri in exchange for his assistance. The choice Geralt faces is whether to help a man who may not deserve help, whether to believe in the possibility of redemption for someone who has caused so much pain. The decision is complicated by the fact that the Baron's information about Ciri might be crucial to Geralt's mission, but accepting the Baron's offer might also mean becoming complicit in enabling further abuse or violence. As Geralt investigates the Baron's family situation, he uncovers a story of tragedy and complexity that defies simple moral categorization. The Baron's wife turned to alcohol and magic to escape her unhappy marriage, making choices that were understandable but that also contributed to the family's dysfunction. Their daughter became caught between her parents' conflicting needs and expectations, suffering from the consequences of adult decisions she was powerless to influence. The supernatural elements of the story, a botchling, a twisted creature born from a miscarried pregnancy that has been terrorizing the countryside, serve as a metaphor for the way unresolved trauma and unacknowledged pain can manifest in destructive ways. Geralt's approach to dealing with the creature reflects his understanding that healing requires not just the elimination of symptoms, but the addressing of underlying causes. The choices Geralt makes in resolving the Baron's family crisis have consequences that extend far beyond the immediate situation. If he helps the Baron find redemption and reconciliation with his family, he demonstrates his belief in the possibility of positive change and the importance of second chances. If he concludes that the Baron is irredeemable and focuses solely on obtaining the information he needs about Ciri, he takes a more pragmatic approach that prioritizes his mission over his personal value. The beauty of these choices lies not in their outcomes but in the way they force both Geralt and the player to confront fundamental questions about human nature, moral responsibility, and the possibility of redemption. The game does not provide easy answers or clear moral guidance. Instead, it presents complex situations and trusts players to navigate them according to their own values and understanding. This approach to moral decision-making extends to every aspect of Geralt's journey, from his romantic relationships to his professional obligations, from his interactions with powerful political figures to his encounters with common people struggling to survive in a dangerous world. Each choice he makes reveals something about his character and influences how the world responds to him. In his relationship with Yennefer, Geralt faces choices about commitment and independence, about the balance between love and freedom, about the possibility of finding happiness with someone whose own needs and desires may conflict with his own. In his relationship with Triss Merigold, another sorceress from his past, he must decide whether to pursue a connection based on genuine affection or to maintain his focus on his search for Ciri and his complicated relationship with Yennefer. These romantic choices are not merely personal but have broader implications for Geralt's alliances and resources. Yennefer's connections to the Lodge of Sorceresses provide him with access to magical knowledge and political influence, but they also entangle him in the complex schemes and rivalries of the magical community. Triss's involvement with the underground network that helps mages escape persecution in Novigrad offers different opportunities and different risks. The choices Geralt makes about his romantic relationships reflect his understanding of himself and his priorities, but they also shape how others perceive him and how willing they are to help him in his quest. The game tracks these relationship dynamics and incorporates them into future events, demonstrating how personal choices have professional and political consequences. As our journey through Geralt's story draws toward its climax, we see how all of his choices, large and small, personal and political, moral and pragmatic, combine to create the context in which he must face his greatest challenge: the confrontation with the Wild Hunt and the ultimate decision about Ciri's fate. The allies he has made, the enemies he has created, the skills he has developed, and the wisdom he has gained all contribute to his readiness for this final test. The power of choice in Geralt's world extends beyond the individual to encompass the collective impact of many people making many decisions. The war between Nilfgaard and the Northern Kingdoms, the persecution of mages in Novigrad, the clan politics of Skellig, and the various supernatural threats that emerge throughout the story, all result from the accumulation of countless individual choices made by people pursuing their own goals and values. In this context, Geralt's choices matter not just because of their immediate consequences, but because they contribute to the larger pattern of how the world evolves and changes. His decision to help the innocent, to oppose injustice, to seek truth and understanding rather than simple solutions, becomes part of a larger movement toward a more just and compassionate world. As we prepare to rest and let our minds drift into the peaceful realm of sleep, we can take comfort in the knowledge that our choices, like Geralt's, matter. In our own world, as in the world of The Witcher, every decision we make sends ripples through the fabric of reality, creating patterns that shape the future in ways both subtle and profound. The power to choose is the power to create meaning, to build connections, to make a difference in the lives of others and in the world itself. The gentle sound of wind through the trees, the soft murmur of a distant stream, the peaceful crackle of a dying fire. These are the sounds that accompany Geralt as he contemplates the choices that have brought him to this moment, and the choices that await him tomorrow. In their rhythm, we can find the peace that comes from understanding that we are not merely passive observers of the world but active participants in its creation, with the power to choose love over fear, compassion over indifference, hope over despair. As dawn breaks over the mist-shrouded marshlands of Velen, painting the sky in gentle pastels of rose and gold, we find ourselves immersed in a world where beauty and wonder exist alongside danger and uncertainty. The realm of The Witcher 3 is not merely a backdrop for adventure, but a living, breathing entity that speaks to the soul through its landscapes, its architecture, its very atmosphere. Every sunrise brings new revelations. Every shadow holds mysteries waiting to be discovered. and every vista invites contemplation of the delicate balance between civilization and the wild. The morning light filters through the canopy of ancient trees, creating patterns of light and shadow that dance across the forest floor like nature's own choreography. Each beam of sunlight seems to carry with it the music of the spheres, an inaudible symphony that resonates in the heart rather than the ears. The air itself is alive with the subtle energies that flow through all living things, currents of magic that can be felt by those who know how to listen, vibrations that connect every plant, every animal, every stone in an endless web of interconnection. In the distance, the spires of Oxenfurt rise like fingers pointing toward heaven, their Gothic architecture speaking of humanity's eternal desire to reach beyond the mundane and touch the divine. The city's bells begin their morning song, a gentle tolling that carries across the countryside like a lullaby for the awakening world. Each note seems to hang in the air for a moment before blending with the next, creating a melody that speaks of continuity, of the eternal cycle of day and night, of the comfort that comes from knowing that some things remain constant in a world of constant change. The university city of Oxenfurt stands as a testament to the power of knowledge and learning, its libraries and lecture halls filled with scholars who seek to understand the mysteries of their world through careful study and reasoned discourse. The cobblestone streets echo with the footsteps of students and professors, their conversations flowing like streams of consciousness through the academic districts. Here, in this center of learning, the harsh realities of the outside world seem softened by the pursuit of wisdom and understanding. As Geralt approaches the city, the morning mist begins to lift, revealing the intricate details of its architecture. The cathedral's rose window catches the early light, transforming it into a kaleidoscope of colors that paint the surrounding buildings in hues of sapphire and emerald, amber and ruby. The sight is breathtaking in its simple beauty, a reminder that even in a world touched by darkness, there exists a fundamental appreciation for the aesthetic, for the way light and shadow, stone and glass can combine to create something that lifts the spirit. The sounds of the awakening city blend together in a symphony of daily life. The clip-clop of horses' hooves on cobblestone, the gentle creaking of cartwheels, the soft murmur of conversations in the market squares, the distant laughter of children playing in courtyards, hidden behind ancient walls. These sounds create a tapestry of human activity that speaks to the resilience of civilization, to the way communities adapt and thrive even in the face of constant threats. Within the city's walls, bards tune their instruments in preparation for the day's performances. The gentle plucking of lute strings creates a counterpoint to the deeper tones of the fiddles and the bright notes of the flutes. Music flows through the streets of Oxenfurt like water through a riverbed, finding its way into every corner, every alley, every quiet courtyard where people gather to share stories and songs. The bards themselves are keepers of more than mere entertainment. They are the living repositories of history and legend, their songs preserving the memories of heroes and villains, of great deeds and tragic failure, of love stories that transcend time and adventures that inspire future generations. When they sing of Geralt's exploits, they transform his actions into something larger than life, weaving his story into the grand tapestry of myth and legend that defines their culture. In the taverns and inns scattered throughout the city, musicians perform for audiences of scholars and merchants, soldiers and craftsmen, creating a shared experience that bridges the gaps between different social classes and professions. The music serves as a universal language, one that speaks directly to the heart without the need for translation or interpretation. A melancholy ballad about lost love resonates equally with a lonely student far from home and a war-weary veteran seeking solace in his cup. The composer Priscilla, whose voice has the power to move even the hardest hearts to tears, represents the pinnacle of this musical tradition. Her performances are not merely entertainment, but transformative experiences, moments when the boundary between performer and audience dissolves and everyone present becomes part of a shared emotional journey. When she sings The Woven Storm, her voice carries not just the melody but the weight of all the experiences that inspired it, all the love and loss, hope and despair that give the song its power. The ballad itself tells the story of a witcher and a sorceress, their love complicated by duty and destiny, by the demands of a world that rarely allows for simple happiness. The lyrics speak of storms both literal and metaphorical, of the way love can be both shelter and tempest, both harbor and hurricane. As Priscilla's voice rises and falls with the melody, the listeners find themselves transported into the story, feeling the emotions as if they were their own. Music in the world of The Witcher serves multiple purposes beyond mere entertainment. It is a means of preserving history, of transmitting cultural values, of creating connections between people who might otherwise have nothing in common. The songs that children learn at their mother's knees become the foundation for their understanding of right and wrong, of what it means to be brave or cowardly, noble or base. The traveling minstrels who wander from village to village carry more than just their instruments. They carry news from distant lands, stories of heroes and monsters, warnings of dangers approaching and celebrations of victories won. Their arrival in a small village is often the highlight of the local social calendar, a time when the entire community gathers to hear the latest songs and stories from the wider world. In the Skellige Isles, music takes on a different character, reflecting the harsh beauty of the islands and the fierce independence of their people. The clan songs of Skellige are often accompanied by drums that echo like thunder across the fjords, their rhythms matching the heartbeat of warriors preparing for battle or the steady stroke of oars cutting through the dark waters of the northern seas. The sea shanties of the Skellige sailors tell stories of great voyages and terrible storms, of sea monsters defeated and treasures discovered in the ruins of ancient civilization. Their voices, roughened by salt air and strong drink, create harmonies that speak of brotherhood forged in shared danger, of the bonds that form between men who trust each other with their lives in the face of the ocean's indifferent power. On the long winter nights when the aurora borealis paints the sky in sheets of green and gold, the people of Skellige gather in their great halls to hear the skalds recite the epic poems of their ancestors. These performances can last for hours, the storyteller's voice rising and falling with the drama of the tale, accompanied by the crackling of great fires and the gentle sound of mead being poured into horn cups. The architecture of Skellige reflects the islanders' relationship with their environment, their buildings designed to withstand the fierce storms that regularly sweep across the archipelago. The great halls are built from massive timbers that creak and groan with the wind, their sounds becoming part of the natural symphony of the islands. The long tables where the clans gather for their feasts are carved from single trees, their surfaces polished smooth by generations of years. In contrast to the rough-hewn beauty of Skellige, the Duchy of Tucson presents a vision of refined elegance and courtly sophistication. This fairy tale realm seems to exist in perpetual spring, its vineyards heavy with grapes, its gardens blooming with flowers that release their perfume into the warm air. The architecture here is all graceful curves and delicate ornamentation, towers that spiral toward the sky like frozen music, bridges that arch over gentle streams with the lightness of spiders. The court of Tucson is a place where the art of conversation has been elevated to the level of performance, where wit and eloquence are prized as highly as skill with sword or spell. The nobles compete not just in tournaments of arms but in contests of poetry and song, their verses flowing like wine from silver goblets, intoxicating in their beauty and sophistication. The Duchess Anna Henrietta holds court in a palace that seems to have been designed by someone who believed that beauty could be made manifest in stone and mortar. Every room is a work of art, every corridor a gallery displaying the finest achievements of human creativity. The gardens surrounding the palace are arranged with mathematical precision, yet they seem to grow with natural spontaneity, as if the gardeners have learned to collaborate with nature rather than impose their will upon it. In the evening, when the sun sets over the vineyards of Tucson, painting the sky in shades of burgundy and gold that mirror the colors of the wine produced in the region, the court musicians perform concerts that can last until dawn. Their music is subtle and sophisticated, requiring careful attention to appreciate its nuances, rewarding listeners who take the time to understand its complexities. The troubadours of Tucson are masters of the art of musical storytelling, their songs weaving together melody and narrative in ways that create experiences that are both intellectual and emotional. They sing of courtly love and chivalric adventure, of quests undertaken for the sake of honor rather than mere profit, of a world where beauty and goodness are not just ideals but achievable realities. Yet even in this seeming paradise, there are shadows that speak to the complexities of the human condition. The fairy tale perfection of Tucson is occasionally disrupted by reminders that even the most beautiful places are not immune to darkness, that evil can wear a pleasant face, and that the most dangerous monsters are often those that appear most harmless. The vampires that inhabit the darker corners of Tucson are not the mindless beasts of legend, but sophisticated creatures with their own culture and aesthetics, their own appreciation for beauty and refinement. Their presence in the duchy creates a tension between the surface perfection of the realm and the hidden dangers that lurk beneath its beautiful exterior. As Geralt travels between these different regions, he experiences the full range of musical and aesthetic traditions that exist within his world. Each location has its own distinctive character, its own way of expressing the relationship between humanity and nature, between civilization and the wild, between beauty and danger. The swamps of Velen, with their twisted trees and stagnant pools, create their own form of dark poetry. The will-o'-the-wisps that dance through the mist at night are like notes in a ghostly composition, their pale light creating patterns that speak to those who know how to read the language of the supernatural. The ancient barrows and stone circles that dot the landscape serve as monuments to civilizations long past, their weathered stones singing silent songs of glory and decay. Even the most desolate places in Geralt's world possess their own form of beauty, a harsh majesty that speaks to the sublime power of nature unchecked by human intervention. The abandoned battlefields where armies once clashed now bloom with wild flowers that grow from soil enriched by the blood of the fallen. The ruins of castles and cities tell stories of ambition and hubris, their broken walls and fallen towers creating compositions in stone that are as moving as any poem. The soundtrack that accompanies Geralt's journey serves as an invisible narrator, commenting on the action and emotion of each moment through musical themes that evolve and develop as the story progresses. The main theme, with its haunting melody played on medieval instruments, immediately establishes the mood and setting of the world, creating an atmosphere that is both magical and melancholy, hopeful and haunting. The combat music pulses with energy and tension, its driving rhythms matching the intensity of sword fights and magical duels, while never becoming so aggressive as to overwhelm the narrative aspects of the conflicts. Each battle is choreographed as much through sound as through visual action, the music providing emotional context that helps the audience understand the stakes and significance of each encounter. In the quieter moments when Geralt rests by his campfire or explores the peaceful corners of the world, the music becomes contemplative and atmospheric, creating space for reflection and introspection. These musical interludes serve as emotional breathing room, allowing the audience to process the events of the story and prepare for the challenges that lie ahead. The romantic themes associated with Geralt's relationships with Yennefer and Triss are masterpieces of musical storytelling, their melodies capturing the complex emotions involved in love that transcends the boundaries of normal human experience. The music speaks of passion and tenderness, of longing and fulfillment, of the way love can be both salvation and torment. When Geralt finally reunites with Ciri, the musical themes associated with their father-daughter relationship swell with emotion that words alone could never convey. The melody speaks of joy and relief, of the deep bonds that connect people across time and distance, of the way love can survive even the most difficult separations and challenges. The supernatural elements of the world are given their own musical vocabulary, with themes and motifs that help distinguish between different types of magical creatures and phenomena. The Wild Hunt rides to music that sounds like the howling of wind across empty spaces, like the voices of the dead calling from beyond the veil of mortality. The ancient spirits that inhabit the old forest sing in harmonies that seem to predate human civilization, their voices carrying the wisdom and sorrow of ages. The political intrigue that shapes the larger narrative is accompanied by music that suggests the complexity and danger of court life, the way that seemingly polite conversations can hide deadly intentions, the constant tension between appearance and reality that defines the world of kings and nobles. As we follow Geralt through his adventures, the music becomes a constant companion, as much a part of the journey as Roach or any of his human allies. It creates continuity between different episodes and locations, helping to weave the various threads of the story into a coherent whole. The recurring themes and motifs serve as musical memories, calling back to earlier events and emotions, creating a sense of development and growth over time. The folk songs and tavern ballads that punctuate the narrative serve as windows into the daily lives of ordinary people, their simple melodies and straightforward lyrics expressing the hopes and fears, joys and sorrows of those who live in the shadow of great events. These songs remind us that even in a world of epic adventures and supernatural dangers, the basic human experiences of love and loss, work and rest, community and solitude remain constant. The religious music of the various faiths represented in the world adds another layer to the cultural tapestry, from the solemn chants of the eternal fire to the mystical songs of the Druid, each tradition bringing its own understanding of the divine and the sacred to the larger symphony of human experience. The music of the different seasons adds temporal depth to the world, with compositions that capture the particular mood and atmosphere of spring rains, summer festivals, autumn harvests, and winter storms. These seasonal themes help create a sense of time passing, of the natural rhythms that govern life even in a world where magic can bend the normal rules of reality. As the evening shadows lengthen across the countryside of the northern kingdoms and the last light of day fades into the gentle embrace of twilight, we find ourselves at the peaceful conclusion of our journey through the world of The Witcher. The campfire beside which we have shared this tale burns low now, its flames dancing lazily in the cooling air, casting warm golden light on the faces of our companions as they settle into the comfortable rhythm of rest and reflection. Geralt sits quietly beside the fire, his weathered hands moving with practiced efficiency as he tends to his silver sword, the blade gleaming softly in the firelight. The familiar ritual of weapon maintenance has become a form of meditation for him, a way of centering himself after the events of each day, of preparing his mind and spirit for whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. The soft whisper of whetstone against steel creates a gentle, rhythmic sound that blends with the other peaceful noises of the evening. Roach stands nearby, her reins loosely tied to a sturdy oak tree, her head lowered as she grazes contentedly on the sweet grass that grows beside the stream. The sound of her gentle munching, combined with the occasional soft snort or stamp of her hooves, adds to the symphony of tranquil sounds that surround our evening camp. She has been Geralt's most faithful companion throughout his long journey, carrying him safely across countless miles of dangerous terrain, never failing him when he needed her most. The stream that flows past our campsite murmurs and babbles with a voice that seems to speak of ancient secrets and timeless wisdom. Its waters, clear and cold from their journey down from the distant mountains, catch and reflect the first stars that begin to appear in the darkening sky above. The gentle sound of water flowing over smooth stones has a hypnotic quality, like a lullaby sung by the earth itself, inviting all who hear it to release the tensions of the day and surrender to the peaceful embrace of sleep. In the distance, an owl calls to its mate, the haunting sound echoing through the forest like a musical note sustained in the evening air. Other night creatures begin to stir as well, the soft rustle of small animals moving through the underbrush, the gentle flutter of bat wings overhead, the barely audible sounds of nocturnal insects beginning their evening chorus. These sounds do not seem threatening or ominous. Instead, they create a sense of life continuing its eternal cycles, of the natural world settling into its nighttime rhythms. As we prepare to let our minds drift into the realm of dreams, we can take comfort in knowing that Geralt's story, though filled with danger and uncertainty, is ultimately one of hope and connection. Despite all the monsters he has faced, all the difficult choices he has been forced to make, all the losses he has endured, he has never lost his fundamental humanity, his capacity for love and compassion, his willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. His relationship with Ciri represents the deepest and most meaningful connection in his life. A bond that transcends the usual boundaries between teacher and student, protector and protected, adult and child. Their connection is built not on blood or obligation, but on mutual respect, shared experiences, and genuine affection. Watching Ciri grow from a frightened young girl into a confident and capable woman has been one of Geralt's greatest sources of satisfaction. A reminder that even in a world full of darkness, it is possible to nurture light and hope. The love that exists between Geralt and Yennefer, complicated though it may be by their respective natures and circumstances, represents another form of connection that adds meaning and depth to his existence. Their relationship is one of equals, two powerful individuals who have found in each other not just passion but understanding, not just attraction but genuine partnership. Their love survives because it is built on acceptance of each other's flaws and strengths, on the recognition that perfect love is not about finding someone without problems, but about finding someone whose problems you can live with and help solve. The friendships Geralt has formed throughout his long life, with fellow witchers like Lambert and Eskel, with sorceresses like Triss Merigold, with bards like Dandelion, with countless ordinary people whose lives he has touched in small but meaningful ways, create a network of connection that gives weight and significance to his existence. These relationships remind us that no one, not even a mutant warrior created to fight monsters, exists in isolation. We are all part of a larger web of human connection, and our lives gain meaning through the ways we touch and are touched by others. As we settle more deeply into our peaceful reverie, we can imagine ourselves walking alongside Geralt on one of his quieter journeys. Perhaps traveling along a country road on a pleasant spring morning, when the world seems full of possibility. The sun warms our faces as we walk, and a gentle breeze carries the scent of wildflowers and fresh grass. Somewhere in the distance, a lark sings its liquid song, and the sound seems to embody all the joy and beauty that exists in the world, despite its many troubles. We might stop at a roadside inn for a simple meal and a cup of ale, sitting in a common room where the afternoon light streams through diamond-paned windows, creating patterns of light and shadow on the worn wooden floor. The innkeeper, a cheerful woman with flour-dusted hands and a ready smile, serves us bread still warm from the oven, and cheese made from the milk of cows that graze in the nearby meadow. The simple pleasures of good food and warm hospitality remind us that happiness often comes not from grand gestures or dramatic events, but from the small, everyday kindnesses that people show to one another. In the evening, we might find ourselves in a village where a local festival is taking place, the streets filled with music and laughter, children running between the booths where craftsmen display their wares and farmers sell their produce. The local musicians play traditional folk songs that everyone knows, and soon the entire crowd is singing along, their voices blending together in harmonies that speak of community and shared tradition. As the night deepens and the festival winds down, we might join a small group gathered around a storyteller who regales his audience with tales of local heroes and ancient legends. His voice rises and falls with the drama of his stories, and the listeners lean forward, caught up in the spell of narrative magic that transforms ordinary words into vivid experiences. The children in the audience have grown sleepy from the excitement of the day, and they lean against their parents, their eyes heavy but still wide with wonder at the stories being told. When the storyteller finishes his final tale, the crowd disperses quietly, people making their way home through streets lit by the soft glow of lanterns and the gentle radiance of the moon. The sounds of the village settling into sleep create a peaceful backdrop. The soft closing of doors, the whispered goodnights of families, the distant lowing of cattle in their barns, the gentle hoot of an owl somewhere in the darkness. We might spend the night in a comfortable room at the village inn, The bed soft with clean sheets and warm blankets. The window open to let in the cool night air. As we lie there listening to the peaceful sounds of the sleeping village, we can feel our own minds growing quiet and still, the worries and concerns of the day fading away like mist before the morning sun. In our dreams, we might find ourselves riding across the vast plains of Temeria, the grass flowing around us like a green ocean in the wind. The sky above is a perfect blue, dotted with white clouds that cast moving shadows on the earth below. In the distance, mountains rise like sleeping giants, their peaks touched with snow that glitters in the sunlight. The air is clean and fresh, filled with the scent of grass and wildflowers, and we feel a sense of freedom and possibility that comes from being in a place where the horizon stretches endlessly, in all directions. Or perhaps we dream of the forests of Skellige, where ancient trees tower overhead like the pillars of a vast cathedral, their branches forming a canopy so thick that only occasional shafts of sunlight penetrate to the forest floor. The air here is cool and mysterious, filled with the scent of moss and fallen leaves, and the sound of our footsteps is muffled by the thick carpet of organic matter that has accumulated over centuries. Somewhere in the distance, a stream gurgles and laughs as it makes its way over rocks and fallen logs, and the sound draws us forward like a gentle invitation. The magical elements of Geralt's world add an extra dimension to our peaceful fantasy. We might imagine encountering a friendly spirit of the forest, a creature of pure magic that appears as a gentle glow moving between the trees, its presence bringing a sense of wonder and enchantment to our journey. Or perhaps we might come upon a circle of standing stones where ancient druids once performed their rituals, the stones still humming with residual magic that makes the air shimmer and dance. These magical encounters in our dreams are not frightening or dangerous, but filled with the same sense of wonder and possibility that we might feel when watching a particularly beautiful sunset, or hearing a piece of music that moves us to tears. The magic of Geralt's world, when experienced in the peaceful realm of sleep and dreams, becomes a source of comfort and inspiration rather than danger and conflict. As we drift deeper into sleep, we might find ourselves in the great library of Oxenfurt, surrounded by thousands of books that contain all the knowledge and wisdom of the ages. The shelves stretch up toward a vaulted ceiling painted with constellations and mythological scenes, and the air is filled with the pleasant scent of old parchment and leather bindings. We can imagine spending endless hours here, reading tales of adventure and romance, studying treatises on philosophy and magic, losing ourselves in the accumulated wisdom of generations of scholars and scribes. The librarians who tend this vast collection are kindly figures who move through the stacks with silent efficiency, always ready to help visitors find exactly the book they need. They speak in soft voices that seem to carry the weight of all the stories and ideas contained within these walls, and their presence adds to the sense of peace and contemplation that pervades the library. Or perhaps our dreams take us to the vineyard terraces of Toussaint, where the grapes hang heavy on the vine in the golden light of late afternoon. The air is warm and sweet with the scent of ripening fruit, and somewhere in the distance we can hear the voices of the harvesters singing traditional songs as they work. The landscape stretches out below us in a patchwork of green and gold, dotted with comfortable farmhouses and crossed by winding roads that seem to lead to adventures that are more pleasant than perilous. The Duchess's palace rises in the distance like something from a fairy tale, its towers and spires reaching toward a sky painted in shades of pink and orange by the setting sun. The sight fills us with a sense of wonder and anticipation, as if we are about to attend a grand ball where everyone is beautiful and kind, where the music never stops, and where every dance is perfect. In the gardens of the palace, peacocks strut across manicured lawns, their brilliant plumage catching the light like living jewels. Fountains splash and gurgle with water that seems to catch and hold the light, creating patterns of sparkle and shadow that are constantly changing yet somehow always beautiful. The flower beds are arranged in complex geometric patterns that please the eye while appearing completely natural, as if the gardeners have learned to collaborate with nature rather than impose their will upon it. As our dreams grow deeper and more peaceful, We might find ourselves on a quiet beach on one of the Skellig Islands, the waves lapping gently at the shore with a rhythm that matches the beating of our heart. The sand is warm beneath our feet, and the salt air fills our lungs with each deep, relaxing breath. Seabirds call to each other as they wheel overhead, their cries blending with the sound of the waves to create a natural symphony that speaks of the eternal rhythms of earth and sea and sky. The sun is setting over the ocean, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson that seem too beautiful to be real. As the light fades, the first stars begin to appear, and we might lie back on the warm sand to watch them emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The constellation of the Wolf rises in the east, and we think of Geralt and all the adventures we have shared with him, feeling grateful for the journey and peaceful in the knowledge that all stories, no matter how complex or challenging, eventually find their way to moments of rest and reflection. The sound of the waves becomes more and more distant, as sleep claims us, their rhythm becoming part of our own breathing, their peaceful persistence helping to carry us into the deep, restorative sleep that our bodies and minds need. In this sleep, we are safe and protected, surrounded by the beauty and wonder of a world where magic is real but gentle, where heroes still walk among us, and where every ending is also a new beginning. As we finally surrender completely to sleep, we might have one last peaceful vision of Geralt himself, sitting by his own campfire under a star-filled sky, his responsibilities fulfilled, his loved ones safe, his mind at peace. He looks up at the stars with a slight smile on his weathered face, and for a moment he seems to look directly at us, nodding slightly, as if to say that all is well, that the world is in good hands, that we can rest now knowing that there are still those who will stand guard while we sleep. The fire burns lower and lower until it is just a warm glow in the darkness, and then even that fades away, leaving only the gentle sounds of the night and the peaceful rhythm of our own breathing. The stars wheel overhead in their eternal dance. The wind whispers through the trees with voices that speak of comfort and continuity, and all the world settles into the deep, restful sleep that comes at the end of a long day's journey. In this sleep, we are part of something larger than ourselves, connected to all the characters and places we have encountered in our journey through Geralt's world. We are part of the great story that encompasses all stories, the eternal tale of courage and compassion, love and loss, hope and healing that continues to unfold in every moment, in every dream, in every peaceful sleep that restores our spirits and prepares us for whatever adventures await us when we wake. The last sound we might hear before sleep claims us completely is the distant howl of a wolf somewhere in the wilderness, a sound that is both wild and comforting, both strange and familiar. It reminds us that even in the deepest darkness, there are guardians watching over us, protectors who will face whatever dangers arise so that we can sleep peacefully and wake refreshed, ready to face our own adventures with courage and compassion. And so we drift into the deepest sleep, carried by the rhythm of stories and the comfort of knowing that we have spent our evening in the company of heroes, surrounded by beauty, immersed in a world where love and friendship triumph over fear and hatred, where even the most difficult choices can lead to moments of peace and understanding, where every ending is also a promise of new beginning. The realm of The Witcher 3 becomes our sanctuary, a place where we can return whenever we need to remember that stories have power, that beauty exists even in the darkest places, that connection and compassion are the forces that truly matter in any world, whether real or imagined. In our dreams, we become part of this world, and it becomes part of us, a source of comfort and inspiration that will remain with us long after we wake. Sleep comes gently now, as natural as breathing, as peaceful as the flow of water over stones, as comforting as the warmth of a fire on a cold night. We are safe, we are loved, we are part of something beautiful and eternal. And in that knowledge, we find the deep, restful sleep that restores both body and soul. The story of The Witcher 3 may have ended, but the peace it has brought us continues, flowing through our dreams like a gentle river, carrying us toward the morning on currents of tranquility and hope. And when we wake, we will carry with us the memory of this journey, the knowledge that somewhere in the realm of story and imagination, Geralt of Rivia still rides the paths of adventure, still protects the innocent, still stands as a reminder that even in the darkest times, there are those who choose to be guardians of light. May your dreams be filled with peaceful adventures and gentle magic, and may you wake refreshed and ready for whatever quests await you in the waking world.